Hi guys, today we're going to be tackling the spark plugs on my 2017 Ram 1500 with the 5.7 liter. It's not a cheap job, 2 spark plugs per cylinder, 16 plugs. The factory puts in iridium, so thankfully you don't have to do them for 100,000 miles, 160,000 K for us up here in Canada. So stick around and we can show you guys how you can save $300 by doing this service yourself. But I just wanted to bring something up here. I cheaped out 3 years ago and bought some platinum plugs to go in this truck, which is fine. You just can't run them up to 100,000 miles. They're a lot less. I think they're half that or something is what they're rated at. And the local parts store sold me some NGK 5018s. They didn't have the iridium ones in stock at the time, so I thought, save a little money, I'll just use these and change them out a little more often. But really shouldn't, because this job is a bit of a bear. It's hard to get to the spots by the brake booster, and the ones on the right side at the back are hard to get to too. There's some stuff in the way there, computer wiring and some heater hoses and whatnot. But the important point I want to stress here is when you get your parts, check the part number. This is what I actually end up getting. 5017. So that would have ended badly. If we have a look at these guys, they are a tapered seat on these. Show you guys the proper ones. These are the iridiums, but you can see they have the washer on them. Crush washer, so not the same. I guess these were for the 03 through 08 model is what they're telling me, so I'm glad I didn't put these in. Not sure how compatible they would have been with the newer coil packs and all that, so thank goodness got that in time. So the first time I did this job was on my older truck, the 09, and on that one it was a bit of a bear to do this job. I had to use a bunch of universal joints and different length of extensions to get to those hard to reach spots. So a few guys on the forum have been mentioning getting one of these. They're a spark plug socket with a universal built in, so this drops into the spark plug hole, and then you can get your wrench on there without having to add a bunch of weird gizmos to make this work. So I'm going to give this a whirl and see if it really does help. I'm sure it will. I think that would do the trick. The one I got happens to be the 5/8 spark plug socket from Princess Auto, which we have here in Canada. I think you guys have a Harbor Freight in the States. But the nice thing about it is it's also magnetic. So I remember on my old one I was using the old, the stock one that comes in your old socket set you get from Sears, and it's old, the rubber's hardened and worn out, it's plastic in there basically, and the spark plug doesn't hold. So you can do the old trick of wrapping a piece of electrical tape around one edge so it'll grab the spark plug, but pain in the butt. So this magnetic idea is a really good idea. Gear wrench also makes one, which is the one mentioned in all the forums. I guess maybe it's more readily available in the States, but they're available on Amazon too. I'll throw a link at the bottom. It's a gear wrench 50846, which is the same thing as this 5/8 with a 6-inch extension on it. The nice thing about the one from Princess Auto is this was $9. So I think the gear wrench is 15 to 20 last time I looked. So might not be the same quality, but if it holds up for 16 spark plugs, it's a job well done in my books. So, all right. First thing we gotta do now is pop under the hood, is remove everything to get access to the spark plugs. So I've got the cold air intake on my truck. That's where the stock airbox lives too, though, so it's not a lot different. Obviously this piece looks different on mine too, but it's basically the same. You remove these. There's some bolts here into the fender that hold these on, and then just a clamp here to loosen the top of the intake, and connector here for the sensor, for the temperature sensor for the incoming air. So I've got those off. The cover you just pull up and out. So. Alright guys, unfortunately I had a little technical difficulty with my camera and we lost the audio for the next few sections of video, so I'm going to attempt to do a voiceover for you guys. This part's pretty easy. You just loosen the clamps on the filter and remove it. Loosen the clamp closest to the airbox, and then you can pull the airbox. Loosen the clamp at the bottom of the air snorkel, pull out the connector. That just pulls off, and the engine cover pulls straight up as well. You'll see that there's 4 coils on the passenger side of the truck. Each coil, of course, has 2 spark plugs. There's a connector to disconnect on each one, and 10mm bolts into them. There's this wiring harness at the back of the truck that will get in your way too, but you can get something like a panel tool or something and pop that little grommet off. And there's also these heater hoses, and there's a little connector you can undo easily with a straight screwdriver at the back there. So you're probably going to need to move those as well. So it's 10mm to remove the bolts on the coil packs. I'm using a little cordless impact just to make it quicker. Once you've got the bolts out, then you take the electrical connector off. I found the easiest, because it's hard to get pressure on the connector tab with your fingers, is to push on the tab with a flat screwdriver. Or you can use it to pry the connector a little bit if you need to, but the screwdriver really helps pop those off a little easier. Once you've got them off, make sure you inspect, make sure there's no dirt or anything in the connector, no water got in there, in case you were pressure washing or anything like that in the past. And the coil pack, you just grab and it pulls straight out. They're fairly flexible, so they're pretty forgiving to pull out. Those two towers on them have quite a bit of flexibility, which is important when you get to some of the tighter spots. You can actually kind of angle and pull them out, which helps a lot to remove them easier. And then we're going to use our new universal magnetic socket to loosen up the spark plugs. Right, so at this point, you're ready to pull out the first plug. You want to inspect your plugs. A normal plug will have grayish, tan, or brownish deposits on the side of the electrode. If that's the case, everything's good. If you have an oily spark plug, carbon fouled spark plug, a wet spark plug, or anything is burnt, or you have a worn electrode or burnt off electrode, then you've got problems and you need to dig into it further. But as long as this is the case, you're just fine. Now we can go ahead and remove the next 2 coil packs as well. They are quite easy to access. The last one, you're going to have to pull that clamp out around the wire harness, and it's a Christmas tree style of rubber pushing clip. So I used a pair of needle nose to get it off there. A panel tool would work really well too, and that gives you access to take the last plug off the third one. And then once that's done, now you got to remove the clip from the heater hoses, and that one will allow you to move the hoses out of the way so that you can get to the end one. So that one is just use a straight screwdriver, and you stick it under there and turn it 90 degrees, and it'll release that clip. It's just clipped to itself with a little tab. And once you've got the clip off, then there's quite a bit of room to move the hoses out of your way. And then you can see there the connector in the back. So you got to just kind of push these up out of the way and hang them on top of that bracket there, and then that gives you enough room to get the tool in there. Once you've got that, there's no room for the impact, of course, so you have to use the little ratchet. It's a little tight, but you kind of, once you can maneuver stuff around a little bit, it's not too bad. It gives you enough access to get in there. You pull those two bolts and release the clip on the last coil pack, or the connector rather, and then you'll be able to pull that one out as well. And then we'll just go ahead and remove the rest of the spark plugs here. This is where this tool shines. This is the first place you'll actually really appreciate it, is those two end plugs, because you're having to fight that electrical bundle as well as the heater hoses. So you kind of have to drop that socket and universal assembly in there, and then you can find places to wrestle the anaconda and get the ratchet on top of it. But with a little wiggling and maneuvering things around, it's actually not terribly bad. But this is the first place where this tool really earns its keep. Okay, so this is the driver's side. You can see how much tighter this is on this side. Not much we can do here. We can swivel this out of the way, give us a little more room, but other than that, it's just you know, grin and bear it. I've got a little extension for this guy, but I'll see which ones I can get first, and then we'll go from there. Probably will be dropping a socket in the muck here somewhere, I'm sure of it. There we go. Don't give you much room in here, but it's the price you pay for Hemi power, I suppose. Garage doesn't care. They charge I've seen one guy got a quote for $500 to do this job, but you know, when the spark plugs themselves, but I mean the iridium ones, cost $200, I can see why the shop would charge you close to that by the time they cover their labor rates and all that. It's a good opportunity to save yourself a bunch of money by doing this yourself, as long as you have some patience and some basic, I mean really basic tools. I probably could have got away with doing this the same way I did years back with joints and everything else, universal joints, not the smoking joints. You know, but for $9 to get the proper tool, why wouldn't you? You're gonna spend $9 on the curse jar in the first hour if you don't have that tool. That's for sure. Oh, I didn't loosen that one yet. All right, screwdriver out. Get these plugs off here. There we go. First coil pack. So now when you think about 100,000 miles with the iridium plugs before you have to change them, this really isn't all that bad. Or sorry, yeah, 100,000 miles, 160,000 kilometers, so I'm not even quite there yet, but I figured I'd get this job done before winter, because this would be twice as bad if there was snow flying around here. Much rather do this in shorts and a t-shirt. So I'm going to pull up a bit just so I can get to the connector easier. There we go. Okay, that's the first two. I'm just going to change back to pulling a couple plugs out just to change it up a little bit so the arm doesn't get tired of the same motion all the time here. Different tool. Oh. Let's loosen both of them first. One trick when you're running something like a wrench inside an engine bay and there's sharp objects around you, don't just grab this and yank and hope for the best. If your finger slips off, you're grazing your hand along something and getting a bunch of cuts. What I like to do is grab the wrench with 4 fingers, grab something else with your thumb, and use your hand pressure. Just squeeze it, and you'll get quite a bit of pressure that way, as long as this thing's not, you know, seized in there. But you don't run the risk of slamming your hand into something sharp because you're controlling the motion of your hand. Try to keep all that red stuff inside you. That's where it's supposed to be. Okay. Yeah, this side looks really similar to the other. Nothing shocking here yet. I honestly don't expect there to be. This truck has 137,000 kilometers, I think, but I've never so much as ever seen an engine light come on this thing, so I don't anticipate we're going to find anything funky on these plugs anyways, but great truck. Second Hemi I've had now, and can't beat the power of these engines when you're towing something. Well, you can with a diesel, I suppose, but the price of diesel nowadays, I don't know if that's even really a thing anymore unless you're really towing something big. But it's a nice balance between having lots of power and still being not terrible on gas when you don't step on it. And then you've got the really nice set of comfort in these trucks now, the heated and cooled seats if you want, and they really aren't the trucks of yesteryear anymore. We had to settle for a crank up windows, and I mean, this thing's even got a power rear slider, which I don't think I would have chose if I was, you know, picking my ideal truck out of a brochure. But when you have it, you open the sunroof and the rear slider, that airflow through the cab is just awesome. And you can control it right from your seat, which is nicer than it sounds. The other option I didn't think I would ever go for, it just happened to be on this truck as part of a package, I guess, was the heated steering wheel. I've never in my life had that feature. On some old trucks, you know, with the metal steering wheel with the little vinyl over top, I would just put a, you know, steering wheel cover on it, the fuzzy one or whatever, keep your hands warm. But once you have a heated steering wheel, especially up here in Canada where it gets cold in the winter, let me tell you, you do not want one without it anymore. It's just one of those gotta have things after that. Well, come on. Let go. You didn't marry it. There you go. I really should invest in a nicer set of socket wrenches. Mine's it's got the ball to hold the socket and all that, but of course you just yank it to take it off. The nicer ones have a button at on the top that you push to release it, right? And that is nice after doing this for a few hours at a time. Do notice, I don't know if you guys noticed, they have a grease on the tip that they put on from the factory. And look up and see if that's just a lithium grease or if we can use silicone grease on there maybe. I'll look that up before we put the new ones in. Another good one. Okay. Well, here comes the dreaded ones. As you can see, where there's like no room there between the booster and the coil packs, so these ones are fun. You might want to get a stepping stool, get yourself a little higher up in there. Well, not you guys watching, but you know, I'm gonna. But you literally have to do a reach around the brake booster here to get to these guys. Hope I didn't just give you a close-up on my ear. That wouldn't be very enjoyable for you guys. I watched one guy's video. Oh, there we go, right through. Oh well, at least it's on the floor. I watched one guy's video where he actually right under the truck, where he actually climbed into the engine bay and worked from there, standing on the on top where the shock tower is, but I don't know if that would be any easier or not. I guess I'll have to give that a try next time and see if that helps at all. But either way, it seems like a bit of a contortionist move is required for this anyways. What I forgot to do is hit the timer on this, but I guess I can reference the video later. Just give you guys an idea how long this job is, but probably a 2-beer job, I would guess. I don't think it's going to be any quicker putting the new stuff in compared to taking the old ones out. I mean, couldn't I do with just my fingers? Nope. It's just hard to get enough thumb pressure on these little release tabs for these coil packs. Screwdriver really does help a lot. One more. It's almost a one-handed operation at the back ones. I'm guessing this is the one that's easier to get from the fender liner, but I don't know, the last time I removed one of those on my other truck, I can't even remember what I was doing, something underneath there, it was kind of a pain to get off anyways, but taking the tire off and jacking it up and all that, maybe it's worth it. Let me know down below in the comments if you guys have done it that way and if it is easier. Because this is sure a pain. Or bend your arm straight backwards to get in there. Just not a natural position. Luckily these screws come out really easily once you got them loosened, so you can use 2 fingers and a socket to twist these out here. Okay. Okay. There she is. Okay. Stuck under a wire harness here. There we go. Oh, well, that one's definitely the worst one. By far. This is also the one where I had a nightmare with on the extensions, so let's give this a shot. Wow. That one dropped right in. What kind of mileage are you guys getting on your trucks? I don't run premium fuel or anything, and when I'm not towing, doing just the speed limit on the highway, which around here is 100-ish K, I usually get between 21 and 22 miles per gallon, which ain't too bad. On my old truck, I had a Super Chips tune on it, but I ran their 91, I think it was a 91 octane tune, 91 or 93? I think I tried the 93 actually, and it gave it a lot of pep, but they did have a mileage saver option too, which I never did try, because honestly, I don't buy one of these for economy necessarily. I had an exhaust on that truck with a Dynamax exhaust, 3-inch, there's 3 ounce, all the way straight duals back, and then some nice tips on it. and the same intake I have on this truck, the air raid intake, and then the performance tune on it, and man, did that wake that truck up. That was a fun truck to drive. I don't know, I had that once. I didn't figure I needed it on this truck, and I mean, for that nowadays I have a second vehicle for fun and power, which is going to be popping up on this channel from time to time as well. It's a 2006 BMW M5, so when I feel the urge to make some noise and get going quickly, I just use that instead, rather than, you know, leave this one relatively stock. I found with that big exhaust on it, when you're towing an RV, it can get a little annoying. There was a bit of a drone to it for sure. Well, first time the magnetic sockets failed me. I think I snagged that socket on the end of the valve cover gasket, or valve cover there. I was pulling it out. I guess nothing's perfect. Alright, so we got them all out. So let's go to the bench and gap the plugs, and we'll look at what the old ones compare gap wise, and we'll go from there. Alright, so just out of curiosity's sake, see what these ones are. If they're still set at the factory recommended 44th hour or not. Yeah, they actually are. Try one more from the other side. Yep. Interesting. I would have thought the Center Electric would have eroded a little more than that, over 135,000 K. That's actually pretty impressive. So let's compare these two to the new. They got the same crush washer. Another important thing to check is the insertion length here. Make sure you compare those to your old plugs, because if somebody's grabbed the wrong one off the shelf and this is longer, you'll be in real trouble. Interestingly enough, stock ones are indeed in NGK iridium. LZF3FC1, and I've got LFR5A1X-11. It's a slightly different part number, but this did cross over in the system as the right one, so not sure if it was just a slight difference with a newer style or something. I'll have to look at that up later. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure these are gapped correctly. Oh, no. I can't even get the 0.042 through here. Definitely should be gapped to 0.44, so I'm going to have to check these all. But be careful with these. You don't ever want to get anything in at the electrode here. Just grab at the base of the arm and just give it a small bit of tension. It doesn't feel like it's moving on you, but Nope, not quite enough there. Really doesn't take a lot. They make several styles of these gapping tools, and the one I had before this was the circular type. It just looks like it's round, and there we go. And it's got you know, increasing thickness as you go around with different markings on it. And then in the center it had the bending tab. But I found with that one you can't really, it's hard to judge how much pressure you're putting on it to get the leverage to bend this properly. It took way more tries usually using that tool than this one. And I found this is a lot more exact with the kind with the wire thickness gauges on it, rather than running it through the dial and trying to guess if it's between one or the other or where you're at. It's much easier to just friction test with this, I find. So, my preferred tool, but you know, whatever works for you. So I'll go ahead and gap the rest of these, and then we'll get to putting them back in the truck. Right, so I've got these all gapped now, so we can go ahead and start putting them in. What I like to do is just put them all in finger tight first, and then go around and torque them. I do use a torque wrench always for anything important, but if you guys are, you know, it happens, you're on a low budget, whatever, you don't have a torque wrench, you're broke, whatever the case is, to get you close, the rating from the factory manual is 18 to 22 foot-pounds on these, but to get you close, what NGK suggests is for the M14 thread, which is what these are, tighten it by hand and then go one half to 2/3 of a turn, and you should be at roughly 18 to 22 foot-pounds. So in a pinch this will work, but I highly recommend you invest in a torque wrench. They're not that expensive if you get one on sale somewhere, and well worth it in my opinion. And yeah, like I mentioned before, if you happen to drop one of these by accident, recheck the gap, because you probably just accidentally closed the gap to less than it's supposed to be. I still have one in there. I'll be damned. I got too busy yapping, and I never took these last ones out of here. Who was supposed to be counting, by the way? Oh yeah, that was me. It's always the guy with the wrench in his hand. That's guilty, isn't it? I'm new to this YouTube thing, or just recording myself in general, and boy, it takes some getting used to. I tell ya, I probably would have been done this half an hour ago if I didn't stop to record everything and set up the camera and wait for thunderstorms to clear. But hey, it is a ton of fun, and if I can, you know, help somebody out with a DIY or something, or at the very least, you know, entertain you guys, then that's good enough for me. Check on the gap in these. Only one was right at 0.044. The others were all around 42,000, not 44, so kind of interesting. don't imagine that my thickness gauge is out. So yeah, would it have really made any real world difference? Probably not. Would the truck even notice? Doubtful. But something to consider. Double check them every time. If you're going to go through the trouble anyways, you might as well set them right. Doesn't take long. Firm believer in doing everything right, but doing it, and then you only do it once. It's kind of like that measure twice, cut once principle those woodworking guys like to employ. There's some truth behind that. You know, now that we've done the driver's side, even the one on the back on the passenger side doesn't seem like that big a deal. Maybe might be an idea to start on the difficult side first, and then this will just feel like a walk in the park. Hey? Fool the old brain into thinking it wasn't so bad. Alright, so 18.5 to 22 foot-pounds, so we're going to go right in the middle and set it for 20. This particular one's kind of nice. It gives you a live readout of what the torque is on it as you're twisting, so you know when you're getting close. There we go. It'll also flash the maximum torque you achieved on it, so you can compare that to what you set it to see how, if you went over and how far you went over, because it's easy to do, especially with these low numbers. 20.2. You know what? Just for sharts and giggles, let's test this theory out here. It's this one. Okay, this finger tight. Let's go half a turn. Right about there. Let's see what that says. Name of science. About just under 20. So yeah, so accurate enough, I guess. So if you don't have a torque wrench, you can get it pretty close. That was half a turn, not 2/3 of a turn. Maybe my fingers had too much strength in them when I initially went finger tight. Oh, who knows? Come on. Okay, so that's all the spark plugs. I'm just gonna get us the rag so we can put quickly wipe off the oil packs. Now I said I was going to look up that grease, but there's actually still grease in these boots. So I'm not going to add any more. I'm just going to leave whatever the factory put in there in there. It should be good enough. You know, I'm a bit of a freak. I clean everything before I put it back in, but the other good habit to be in when you're doing this is when you're cleaning them, you get a good look at each piece of it, each side of it, and make sure there's not a crack or some defect hiding under the dirt that you didn't see before. So it's a good idea to do it. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but you can see there's still grease inside there, so we're just going to go ahead and put them in. Get these seats too. One coil back. Again, I'm just finger tightening these because there's a torque spec of 5 foot-pounds for these. Or if you've got this real precise torque wrench, I guess that'd be 60 inch-pounds. And the spec in the service manual I saw actually says 62 inch-pounds, very quite precisely. I guess the 5 foot-pounds isn't quite precise enough or something. But that's what she said. I'll look to check any electrical connectors too, make sure it's nice and shiny in there, because if you had any water ingress in there from pressure washing this thing or anything like that, you're gonna want to know. And there is ways to address that to get the corrosion out reasonably well too. Electrical contact cleaners, a spray that works for most things if it hasn't corroded too bad, but if it has, then you're gonna have to get a little mini file in there or a little mini tool on a small rotary tool or something to clean it up, but you're not going to want to leave it like that. I guess worst case a guy could replace these plugs if it got too bad, but I haven't so far seen any issues with these anyways. They seem to be pretty watertight anyhow. Make sure you feel the click of them snapping into place. You don't want these popping off, obviously. One of these days I might have to do a detailing video on how to clean up under the hood. But clearly I'm not very good at it, so I'm going to have to learn how first, I think. I did buy a little steam machine, so off that Jungle website. So we can maybe give that a whirl and see how that works. I have seen, I think there's Tavares actually had a guy out. If you guys don't watch him, he's pretty entertaining. He had a guy out using a dry ice machine. Man, was that neat! It looked like it looked almost like it was spitting out a spray of water, but it was really fine little ice chunks. And they detailed an engine bay with it. It seemed to take off a lot of stuff. The only thing they said it wasn't very good for was foam. It destroys foam, I guess, which makes sense. But man, they're ever clean things up nice. And you'd think it would leave a bunch of water or mess behind, but it just kind of looked like a clean version of sandblasting, if you guys ever got to see that before. But everything just kind of disappeared right in front of your eyes. It looked like it'd be real fun to use. So I don't know if there's enough interest in that. Maybe I'll see if I can at some point get enough funds scraped together to try out one of those dry ice machines. It would definitely be a fun toy to have, if nothing else. There's nothing worse than those guys. Usually it's used car lots. They just hose off underneath the engine and then spray about a gallon of Armor All in there just to make it shiny, and sure, it hides the dirt for a little while until you drive it in the dust and it attracts more dirt than they ever removed, and everything's greasy, and yeah, not a fan of that. How does anybody even use Armor All anymore? For interiors, dashes, anything like that? I can't think of anything. Had to get the other torque wrench. The other one didn't go down low enough to 5 foot-pounds. Which really is not very much. So if we go from finger tight, it's only about a quarter turn. So if you're in a pinch, quarter turn plus finger tight will get you roughly 5 foot-pounds. A little less than a quarter turn. Okay, that's the passenger side. Alright guys, went ahead and fitted the rest of them on this side except for the last most difficult one, just to see how hard this one is to get in. The other ones just went in without a cinch. There was nothing really to show. I'm sure you guys got better things to do than just watch me drop plugs in a hole, but oh yeah, perfect. This tool is worth its weight in gold. I don't think I'd even attempt this again without it. I remember the it's all coming back to me now, the horror of doing this the first time around. It's just, this just makes it almost not even that bad, to be honest. There, it's in. Yeah, I remember this being so bad that I was actually dreading doing this for a few weeks now and putting it off, but I might need to add an extension on this one, on this side. Oops. Yeah. Don't think I would if I wasn't using a torque wrench, but oh. Click, click. See, I did spring a leak at some point there. Oops. I don't know if I've ever really done major operation under a hood without that happening. All right, 4 more. Alright guys, so I got all the spark plugs in there. I managed to use the torque wrench on all of them except for that very end one. I could not get my torque wrench to fit in there. It is a pretty big torque wrench, so if you had a smaller one, probably get one to fit in there, but luckily we knew that trick about hand tight and half a turn, and I used that on the last one. And same with these coil packs. The first bolts, no problem, but this one here, there wasn't enough room in here for the torque wrench with the brake booster in the way. I did discover something. I was taking these all the way out, screwing them all the way out so I wouldn't lose them, but they're actually captivated in there. They don't actually fall out when you get them loose. So there's no need to take these all the way out, which makes it much simpler for relocating them back in place. So I'll get these other two put back in and get them torqued up, and then all that's left to do is plug the last two electrical connectors in. This is also a good time to look at the your belts while you're under here and make sure you don't have any cracking on your belts. Check the tension on the belts. You shouldn't be able to rotate them too much more than halfway here in the longest part. And check this out. I've got quite a bit of build-up in here in my throttle body, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that out before I put my intake boot back on as well. Okay, we've got this all back together here. I found it much easier to hop up on this step stool to the third step at the top, lean over, and then use one arm to pass it underneath the last coil pack, to pass it underneath the brake booster here, and then get it in from the bottom, flip it into the holes. They're flexible enough to come in that way, and that worked pretty good. So again, at the very end ones, there was no hope in heck of getting the torque wrench in there, but that's okay. That finger tight plus a turn plus about a quarter turn trick worked pretty good, and half a turn for the spark plugs. Oof. Pretty dirty in there. I think we're actually gonna take a better look at this. I find it's a better idea to just spray it on the rag and then get the rag in there rather than spraying all kinds of cleaner, possibly in the wrong spots. Too much of it. Wash that black stuff down inside there. None of those things are really good. There we go. Looks a lot better. Okay, the hard part's done. Don't forget to rotate this hose back down if you guys had previously rotated it up to give yourself some room. There we go. Sits like that. And then don't forget to do a head count so you don't leave a fella behind. The cover, the engine cover, it just sits on these, there's some posts on the back of it, these two. They engage back here into these two grommets, and then there's a ball here, and there's a ball back here, right there, that plugs into these parts on the cover. So the hard part's just lining up the back. Takes a little finagling to get it in there. Okay, don't forget to put the heater hoses back in their clip over there and reclamp that wiring harness which I just forgot. And I had difficulties getting the cover on because it doesn't belong on this side of the oil filler cap. It actually goes on the front here. So if you rotate it out of the way like I did, you're gonna have trouble getting the cover on. So it should work a little better now. Don't forget to get the hose out from this slot here. And after that, we just put the airbox back in, hook the clamp back up to the intake there with its snorkel, and we'll try to start it up and see if everything's good. Okay, last piece is the snorkel assembly. The easiest way with these is to leave both clamps loose till you got both ends in there. And then tighten them up. Don't forget this breather. And don't forget this plug. Make sure that's seated in there. And that's it. Right, so now at this point, if we've done everything correctly, we should be able to hit the magic button. Perfect. Nice and smooth, sounds great. So there you have it, guys. Easy way to save 300 bucks over the dealer cost, and that took me probably about 3 hours with messing around and finding the right tools here and there and recording a little bit. So it's not that bad. It's not that bad a job. One leaky spot where I, leaked my own blood a little bit, but you get the satisfaction working on your own vehicles. You know what makes it tick, and yeah, it's just a good feeling. So if you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing the video. There's going to be more coming out on this truck, as well as the M5 over there, as well as the Mercedes CL55 AMG project we've got going there. That's not a runner at this moment. It was purchased in a storage unit. And we've got the Honda side-by-side that we're playing with as well. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks, guys.